question, drug testing, because everyone commented immediately, well, you haven't been tested and you're not doing the test, you're cheating on the test. So how does a drug test look like on a drug test show? Obviously not on the IFBB show, but you know, the shows you've done before.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I've only ever competed in the BNBF just because I believe that to be the best natural bodybuilding federation in the UK. The drug testing is for every time you win a show or randomly they think that someone's maybe a little bit suspect or they want to random do a drug test for someone. You know, a guy maybe who, let's say, not quite in condition, but he's like fourth, but very heavily muscled. They might decide to drug test that person. So you obviously at your you do a drug test. If you win, you then get every single person gets polygraph, so lie detector tested at a British final. So you can't compete unless you've had that done. Now that is actually a really stringent process. I mean, I've heard horror stories of how bad some federations do this with just watching a video and this kind of shit. But this is like a 40-minute grueling. So what they basically do is they'll ask you the same line of questions 3 times. So basically what they get you to do is they obviously get a reading on it. And there is from working with the federations, from the natural federations, there are multiple people who have not competed because they've not passed a polygraph test.
Do you think to cheat on that? Because I don't know how.
It's very hard to. You'd have to really know. I mean, you'd have to be... The reason what they say is why they're sort of not reliable in a court of law is because people who don't have empathy don't...
Yes.
Yeah. So if you'd taken drugs but you really just didn't give a shit, no matter if someone asked you and you said, no, I've never taken any, and you believed your own bullshit to a certain point, you may skim through one. But because the line of questioning is like that, I mean, it'd be very hard to. So I know multiple people who've not been allowed to compete at British finals because they failed a polygraph. They won the qualifier, they passed the drug test, but they failed a polygraph. I know people who've also then been, been drug tested and failed drug tests as well. So for a number of reasons, whether it be diuretic, whether it be oral steroid, or whatever it might be. So TE ratio is the biggest one that people fail on. So TE, what they test for the ratio of testosterone is it's all through WADA. So WADA's drug testing ruling is basically, it used to be. And this you might, if you've watched any of the Lance Armstrong documentaries, you'd probably know about this. So basically, from a natural athlete, around 1% of the country would be over a 5-to-1. So let's say someone's a 6-to-1 ratio. So that's epitestosterone to testosterone. That we found that was too high. So what they did was they brought the scale down, because over a 4, you're going to have a lot more majority. You might get 10% of the country. So what they do, and what happens is when you get drug tested like that, and I've failed 2 drug tests because of the same reason. So basically what happens is you do that test, and if mine was a 4.8 the first time and a 5.2 the second time, what you then have to do is you have to test your B sample with a carbonized isotope test, which basically proves if that testosterone that is in your body is synthetic or it is your natural testosterone. So that's how stringent it is. So you can fail that. If you choose not to pay for that test, then you don't get to basically prove that you're natural. Yeah. You fail, and they just ban you from the federation. So I've had to do that. I was close to a fail on one of the years. They retested me, and then it was on the borderline. And then the next year after that, it was way over. So I had to pay for that test out of the prize money I won for the show as well. And yeah, it basically came back. You test because you take an A and B sample on a day. People used to think that you have to send a different sample in, but no, they take your urine sample and they split it. So split A and B. Obviously, they send it off to the lab where they do that, and that's what they keep. So basically, they test the A and B samples, and then that's your kind of like your sort of right and proof to do that. As I said, I know people in the past who failed that test and then not tested their B sample, probably because they don't want to pay the £500 to know when they have cheated. So it's not a cheap thing just to basically send it off 30 quid or whatever. You know, it's a decent amount of money. So, but as you know, that I always thought that was it was relevant and appropriate to basically prove that he was natural, because as I said, nothing to hide, and it was kind of one of them. So that's how they do it. As a pro, you actually get tested out of season as well. So if you go to a qualifier and there is a drug testing guy there, every single chance that you'll be tested. They can get you to be tested at your house if they thought something was up or something had come about. But I've been tested about 3 times out of season as well.
So basically, fuck off everyone who commented under my post.
Well, it's one of them, because people can be like, well, you could pass a drug test, right? But for me, it's the same thing I said on Phil Ads. It's like, what's the point? If I was going to compete in an untested federation, if I'm going to compete in a natural federation as a drug tested guy, or a drug user, or to use enhancements would be probably the right word, then I would just compete in an open fed. I wouldn't compete as a natural athlete. There's nothing to gain from it, to a point where it's not like you're earning thousands of pounds. I mean, the world titles I won, it was $1,500. I spent more than that on accommodation, food, and hiring a car there or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So like it's a nice bit of pocket money at the end of the show, but you're not gaining anything really from cheating your way out of beating over guys who aren't on drugs. So it's kind of one of those.
That's why I ask you about the drug testing, because to be honest, especially Broderick talks a lot about how to cheat, the WADA, but the polygraph is the part you cannot cheat. You yes, cheat on the blood sample, yeah, you can cheat on a urine sample, whatever, but the polygraph is nearly impossible to cheat that. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that.
I mean, I think it's a very good deterrent for a lot of people as well, because there's a lot of people who will do a qualifier, pass a drug test, and they won't do the Britain because they're worried about failing the drug, the polygraph. But as I said, I know multiple people who've not got through to the show. They don't name and shame them. They used to back in the day. They used to basically put a post up saying, or on the forum saying, such and such has failed a drugs test, and they'd share that with the other federations. So now they share the information with the other natural feds in the UK, because they're on better terms. But as I said, like for the whole legal reasons of stuff, let's say someone had been caught testing they work at a bank, they could lose their job or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's all that. So they don't name and shame, but yeah, I know multiple people I've walked in there with clients and stuff at where everyone's getting like checked in and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, are you competing tomorrow?" They're like, "Oh no, I failed the polygraph test." You're like, "Oh, okay." So it happens for sure. Yeah.